The nurse handed me my son in the delivery room at MUSC Medical Center, and I saw my brother's widow's peak staring back at me. I need you to understand something. I'm a fourth-generation Ashford. My family has been in Charleston for 178 years. We built ships, we built businesses, we built a name that means something in this city. And standing there in that delivery room, holding that tiny baby with my wife exhausted in the bed beside me, I felt my entire legacy crumble in my hands. The baby had gray-blue eyes, a distinctive widow's peak, that sharp V of hairline right in the center of his forehead. I have brown eyes, straight hairline. So does Caroline, my wife. But my brother Jonathan, gray-blue eyes. That exact widow's peak I used to tease him about when we were kids. I made a joke, tried to laugh it off. Genetics are funny, huh? He looks like family. Caroline's face went white. That's when I knew. The nurse was still smiling, adjusting the baby's little pink and white striped hospital beanie. My mother Margaret stood in the corner, watching everything with those sharp eyes of hers. She didn't miss Caroline's reaction either. I could see it in the way her jaw tightened, the way her hand came up to touch the pearls at her throat, a nervous habit she's had since my father died 2 years ago. I held the baby for maybe 30 seconds. Then I handed him back to the nurse. My hands were shaking. I touched my signet ring without thinking, this heavy gold ring that 4 generations of Ashford men have worn. My father gave it to me on his deathbed. The family crest engraved into it, a ship, an anchor, and the year 1847. The ring weighs more than you'd expect. When I'm stressed, I tap it against things without realizing. That metallic sound, tap, tap, tap. I need some air, I said. Caroline tried to grab my hand. Daniel, wait! But I was already moving. Out of the delivery room, down the hallway past other new fathers grinning like idiots, holding balloons and teddy bears. I made it to the men's room, locked myself in a stall, and stood there trying to breathe. My phone buzzed. A text from Jonathan. Congratulations, brother. Can't wait to meet my nephew. Be there soon. I stared at that word. Nephew. My hands were still shaking. I couldn't stop them. An hour later, I was back in Caroline's hospital room, performing. That's what it felt like, a performance. I smiled when the nurses came in to check vitals. I nodded when Caroline's mother called to congratulate us. I took a photo of the baby in his little hospital bassinet because that's what you're supposed to do. Grace and Hope, my 8-year-old twin daughters from my first marriage, came bursting in with my mother. They'd made a scrapbook for their new baby brother, 20 pages of construction paper decorated with horse stickers and crayon drawings. Grace's careful printing. Welcome to our family, baby brother. We love you so much already. The glitter was everywhere. It shed off the pages and onto my hands, onto the hospital blanket. That rough texture of construction paper, the smell of crayon wax. They'd worked on this for weeks. Can I hold him? Hope asked, so excited she was bouncing on her toes. Later, sweetheart, I said. My voice sounded normal. I don't know how. Let him rest a bit. Grace set the scrapbook on the bedside table, right next to the framed wedding photo Caroline had insisted on bringing. Our wedding day, 18 months ago, St. Michael's Church. Caroline looked beautiful in her dress. I looked happy. And there in the background, standing as my best man, was Jonathan. He was in every photo from that day, every single one. The twins climbed onto the hospital bed with Caroline, asking 100 questions. What's his name? When can he come home? Can he share our room? Caroline answered them, but she kept looking at me. Nervous glances, I couldn't look back. I stared at that wedding photo instead. The silver frame was cold to the touch, even though the room was warm. Reverend Caldwell stopped by for a quick visit. He'd been our family's pastor for 30 years. Baptized me, baptized Jonathan, married Caroline and me. He said a prayer over the baby, squeezed my shoulder. You're blessed, Daniel. 3 beautiful children. The Lord has been good to the Ashford family. I nodded. Said thank you, played the part. After he left, Margaret pulled me aside in the hallway. Her hand was shaking when she touched my arm. That's the thing about my mother. She never shakes. She's steel. She held our family together after my father died, ran the board meetings at Ashford Maritime Holdings without flinching. But right now, standing in this hospital hallway with doctors and nurses passing by, she was trembling. "Daniel," she said, her voice was low, urgent. "I need to tell you something, privately." We walked to the hospital chapel. It was empty, just rows of chairs facing a simple altar, soft lighting, the kind of place designed to absorb grief without judgment. I sat down in the back row. Margaret sat beside me. For a long moment she didn't speak. Then, "I hired a private investigator 3 weeks ago." The world tilted. "What?" "I've had concerns," she said, each word careful, measured. "About Caroline and Jonathan, the way they are together, how much time they spend alone at the office. I thought I was being paranoid. A suspicious old woman seeing ghosts, but I couldn't shake it. So I hired someone. Henry Chen. Very discreet." I couldn't breathe. "Mom..." "He's been following them," she continued, taking photos, checking records, credit card statements, hotel reservations. "Daniel, I'm so sorry, but I think..." Her voice cracked. She couldn't finish. "What did he find?" Margaret reached into her purse, pulled out her country club membership card, gold lettering, Ashford family, founding member 1901. The card made a small tapping sound as she fidgeted with it. She does that when she's nervous. Tap, tap, tap against her palm. "He found a hotel receipt," she said quietly. "From Singapore, February 14th through the 18th last year, the business trip you sent them on for the Maritime Expo." My chest tightened. February. I counted backwards in my head. 40 weeks. "The receipt shows 2 rooms were booked," Margaret said, "but one was canceled the same day. Only 1 room was charged, to Jonathan's corporate card, with a notation, 2 guests. Valentine's Day, my brother and my wife, alone, together in Singapore. And 9 months later, a baby who looks exactly like Jonathan." "I hoped I was wrong," Margaret whispered. She was crying now, silent tears running down her face. "I prayed I was wrong, but Daniel, you need to know. Before you sign anything, before this goes any further." I sat there in that chapel, same church where I was baptized as a baby, where my father's funeral was held, where Caroline and I got married. 4 generations of Ashfords had sat in these pews. I'd always felt safe here, connected to something bigger than myself. Now I just felt sick. "There's more," Margaret said. "Henry is putting together a full report. Emails, records, everything. He's meeting you in the parking garage in 20 minutes. I told him you'd be there." She handed me the country club card. I don't know why. Maybe she needed something to do with her hands. I took it automatically. The plastic felt cheap and flimsy, even though it represented 124 years of family history. We founded that club, my great-great-grandfather. His name is on a bronze plaque in the lobby. "I'm your mother," Margaret said. Her voice was breaking. "I should have protected you from this, but it was your own brother. How do I tell you that your brother stole your son?" We sat in silence, both of us crying, and somewhere above us in a hospital room, my wife was probably panicking, wondering what I knew, and my brother was probably texting her, asking if I suspected anything. If you've ever had that moment where your gut told you something was wrong, but you were too afraid to look, where your body knew the truth before your mind was ready to accept it, you understand what I felt sitting in that chapel. That sick, sinking certainty, that knowledge that your life is about to break in half, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. You're not alone in that feeling. Sometimes our bodies know before we're ready to believe. I stood up, wiped my face. "Where's the parking garage?" Henry Chen was waiting by a gray sedan, 50s maybe, silver hair, dark suit. He looked like someone's accountant, not a private investigator, which I guess is the point. "Mr. Ashford," he said, shook my hand. "I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances." He handed me a manila folder, thick. Maybe 40 pages inside. I could feel the weight of it. I didn't open it yet, just held it. Your mother asked me to be thorough, Henry said. I was. What's in there is... Well, you should probably sit down before you read it. Just tell me. He nodded. Respected that. The hotel receipt is in there, so are credit card statements for the past year. Your brother has been making charges at jewelry stores, florists, boutique hotels. Small amounts. Nothing that would trigger attention in a corporate audit. But it's a pattern. Jonathan handles the company finances, I said. My voice sounded far away. He's the CFO. I know. Henry pulled out a second folder, this one even thicker. This is the email thread. I accessed the company server. I'm sorry, Mr. Ashford, but you need to see these. 23 pages, dating back to August. Some of it's coded. Business language that isn't really about business. But toward the end, they stopped being careful. He handed me the second folder. I opened it. The first page was an email dated August 15th, printed on Ashford Maritime Holdings letterhead, from Caroline to Jonathan. Jay, Singapore was incredible. When can we go back? Missing you already. C. I flipped to the next page. August 20th, Jonathan to Caroline. Can't stop thinking about you. Dinner meeting ran late again. Told Daniel I was working on the quarterly report. Meet me at the usual place? J. I flipped faster. September, October, November. The language got less careful, more explicit. December 20th. I can't believe I'm pregnant and it's yours. I'm terrified. But also, I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. I love you. C. The folder slipped from my hands. Papers scattered across the parking garage concrete. Henry bent to pick them up. I couldn't move. There's hotel security footage, Henry said quietly, gathering the pages. From the Raffles Hotel in Singapore. I haven't been able to get a copy yet, but the hotel manager confirmed that a couple matching their descriptions was seen entering room 847 multiple times over those 4 days. They ordered room service twice. Wine. Champagne on Valentine's Day. Room 847, Valentine's Day, champagne, 8 months of emails, 23 pages of love letters between my wife and my brother, and somewhere upstairs, a baby wearing a hospital beanie with my brother's eyes and my brother's hairline was being listed as my son. What do I do? I asked, not really asking Henry, just asking the universe. Henry put the folders back in my hands. The paper was still slightly warm from the printer, that chemical smell of fresh ink and toner. The highlighter marks, yellow, bright, unavoidable, marked every incriminating line. That's not for me to say, Mr. Ashford, but I'd recommend talking to a lawyer before you sign any birth certificates. And maybe getting a DNA test, just to be certain. I stood there in that parking garage, cars going by, normal people living normal lives, driving home to normal families where brothers don't sleep with their brothers' wives, where mothers don't have to hire private investigators, where newborn babies look like the fathers whose names are about to be written on their birth certificates. I thought about my father, about his last words to me 2 years ago in a different hospital room. He'd taken off his signet ring, the same ring I was wearing now, and put it in my hand. The gold was still warm from his finger. Remember, son, he'd said. His voice was weak, dying, but clear. Ashford honor is Ashford currency. It's all we have. Guard it with your life. I'd promised him I would. I'd worn this ring every day since, touched it when I was stressed, felt that weight on my finger reminding me who I was, what I represented. 4 generations of men who built something that mattered. And now, standing in a parking garage at MUSC Medical Center, holding a manila folder full of proof that my brother and my wife had been lying to me for 8 months, that the baby upstairs wasn't mine, had never been mine, would never be mine, I realized something. My father was wrong. Honor isn't something you inherit. It's something you choose every single day. And right now, I had to choose Sign the birth certificate and live with the lie? Protect the Ashford name by hiding the truth? Or burn it all down? I opened the first folder again. The Singapore receipt, thermal paper with that slick, waxy texture, the edges slightly curled, the pink ink fading in patches. Raffles Hotel, February 14th, 2024, Jonathan's corporate card. Carolyn listed as guest 2, Valentine's Day. I counted backward again, 40 weeks. The baby was conceived in Singapore, Jonathan and Caroline alone, together. For 8 months they'd been planning this, 8 months of lies. And I'd been so blind, so trusting, so stupidly, pathetically trusting. I folded the receipt carefully, put it back in the folder, picked up the scattered emails from the ground. Henry helped me. Neither of us spoke. When everything was back in the folders, Henry said, "Your mother wanted me to tell you. Whatever you decide, she supports you. But she also wanted you to know that she will not allow the family Bible to be altered with false information. She said you'd understand what that means." I understood. The family Bible, leather-bound, 1847 edition, kept in my office at home. Inside the front cover, a family tree written in fountain pen. Every birth, every marriage, every death for 178 years. I'd already prepared the space for the new entry. Blank lines waiting to be filled in. William Jonathan Ashford, born March 18th, 2025. Except he wasn't an Ashford. Not really. He was a Holloway, or whatever Caroline's maiden name was before she became an Ashford. Or maybe he was still an Ashford, just Jonathan's son, not mine. Either way, my mother was right. We don't pollute the record with lies. "Thank you," I told Henry. "Send me your bill." "Your mother already took care of it." He shook my hand again. "I'm sorry, Mr. Ashford, I really am. For what it's worth, you deserve better than this." He got in his car and drove away. And I stood there in that parking garage, holding 2 manila folders that weighed maybe 2 pounds but felt like they weighed 200. Evidence of betrayal, proof of lies. 8 months of my brother fucking my wife and me being too blind to see it. I went back upstairs, back to Caroline's hospital room. She was alone now. The twins had gone home with my mother. The baby was sleeping in his bassinet. Caroline was on her phone, typing frantically. She looked up when I walked in, saw the folders in my hand. Her face went white, again, that same look from the delivery room. "Daniel," she said, "what is that?" I set the folders on the hospital tray table, right next to the unsigned birth certificate, that pale blue South Carolina cardstock with the state seal embossed at the top, 3 signature lines, mother, father, registrar. The father line was still blank. "We need to talk," I said. Caroline started crying immediately. "Daniel, please." "How long?" I asked. "What?" "How long have you been sleeping with my brother?" She opened her mouth, closed it, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't Singapore," I said. "February 14th, Valentine's Day, you and Jonathan, the Raffles Hotel, room 847, 2 guests, 1 room, champagne room service." I opened the folder, started pulling out pages. The thermal receipt, the credit card statements. August 15th. "Singapore was incredible. When can we go back? Missing you already." "That's you, Caroline, your email address." "Daniel." December 20th. I read from the page, my voice flat. "I can't believe I'm pregnant and it's yours. I'm terrified, but I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. I love you. You wrote that to Jonathan about this baby." She was sobbing now, full body sobs, the kind that make you think someone's dying. Maybe she was. Maybe we both were. "It was a mistake," she gasped. "One mistake, Daniel. One time in Singapore, I was drunk and lonely, and you were working all the time." I held up the email printouts. 23 pages. "This is 8 months of emails, Caroline. Dinner meeting ran late again. Meet me at the usual place. Can't stop thinking about you. This wasn't one mistake. This was a relationship. She reached for the papers. I pulled them back. Don't. Please. Her voice broke. Please, Daniel, it's over. It's been over since I found out I was pregnant. I ended it with Jonathan. I chose you. I chose our family. Our family? I laughed. It sounded wrong, harsh, not like my voice at all. Is that what this is? Yes. Daniel, yes, you're my husband. You're the father. Am I? I looked at the baby in the bassinet, still sleeping, that widow's peak visible even under the little hospital beanie. Because he looks an awful lot like Jonathan. Caroline went pale. That doesn't mean genetics are complicated. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. I've listened to you lie for 8 months. I'm done. I picked up the unsigned birth certificate, that heavy blue cardstock with the linen texture, the state seal embossed at the top, 3 signature lines, mother, father, registrar. You want me to sign this? I said. You want me to put my name on this document, make it official, legal, permanent. You're his father, Caroline whispered, in every way that matters. Except biology. Daniel, I need you to tell me the truth, Caroline. I sat down in the chair beside her bed, set the birth certificate on the tray table between us, right next to the wedding photo. Our wedding day. Jonathan in the background, smiling. Is this baby mine? She looked at me, looked at the birth certificate, looked at the baby, back to me. I don't know, she finally said. The truth, finally. After 8 months of lies, 3 words of truth. I don't know, she said again. It could be yours. The timing, we were trying to get pregnant, you and me. And Jonathan and I, we were careful. We used protection most of the time, but she stopped, realized what she was saying. I don't know for sure. Most of the time, I repeated. You used protection most of the time with my brother while you were trying to get pregnant with me. Daniel, please. I'm getting a DNA test. I stood up. I'm not signing anything until I know for certain. And if that baby is Jonathan's, then Jonathan's name goes on the birth certificate. Not mine. I won't commit fraud. I won't lie to the state of South Carolina. And I sure as hell won't raise my brother's son pretending he's mine. You're going to destroy our family, Caroline said. For the family's sake, Daniel. Think of grace and hope. Think of the business, the Ashford name. Your father... Don't. My voice came out cold. Don't you dare talk about my father. Don't you dare use for the family's sake like that means something coming from you. You destroyed this family. You and Jonathan, not me. I picked up the folders, left the birth certificate on the table, unsigned. I'll be back tomorrow, I said. Don't call me, don't text me, and don't call Jonathan either. I see one text to him, one phone call, and I'll know. Henry Chen has access to everything now, every email, every message, every call. So think very carefully about what you do next. I walked out, left her crying in that hospital room, left the baby sleeping in his bassinet, left the unsigned birth certificate sitting on the tray table like a grenade with the pin pulled. In the hallway, I could barely breathe. For 3 days, Jonathan didn't come to the office. I called him 16 times, voicemail every time. I texted, no response. I drove to his house. His car was there, but he didn't answer the door. He called in sick, his assistant told me on day 3. Said it's the flu, doesn't know when he'll be back. The CFO, missing during quarterly close. When we had a board meeting in 4 days. When we had investors asking questions. When we had financial reports due. Everyone in the office knew something was wrong. They just didn't know what yet. I stood outside Jonathan's office on the 3rd day. That mahogany door with the brass nameplate. Jonathan Ashford, CFO, Ashford Maritime Holdings. Engraved letters deep enough to feel with your fingertip. 4 brass screws in the corners. My father had that nameplate made when Jonathan graduated from Wharton. passed him the CFO position at 28 years old, youngest CFO in company history. Jonathan was the golden boy, the smart one, the charming one. I was steady, reliable Daniel, the one who showed up, the one who did the work, the one who took over as COO when Dad died because someone had to keep the company running while Jonathan grieved. And all that time he was planning to take my wife, my son, my family. I touched the nameplate, that cool brass, the weight of it. I could unscrew it right now, 4 screws, maybe 30 seconds, remove him from the door, from the company, from my life, but I needed proof first, scientific proof, the kind that couldn't be argued or explained away. I want a DNA test, I told Dr. Robert Shaw, for the baby. We were in his office, private, no nurses, no staff, just him and me and the weight of what I was asking. Dr. Shaw had been our family physician for 20 years, delivered grace and hope, did my father's end-of-life care. He knew everything about the Ashfords, which made this harder. Daniel, he said carefully, that's a serious request. Can I ask why? I have reason to believe the baby isn't mine. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, your mother called me yesterday. Asked the same thing. She told me about the investigation, the evidence. He leaned back in his chair. I assume Caroline doesn't know you're here. No. And your brother? Hasn't returned my calls in 3 days. Dr. Shaw nodded slowly, pulled out a form from his desk drawer. I can order a paternity test through MUSC Genetics Lab. It's non-invasive for the baby, just a cheek swab. We can do it during a routine newborn screening. Caroline won't even know unless you tell her. What about Jonathan? That's trickier. We'd need his DNA to test against. Either he provides a sample voluntarily, or we get creative. My mother has his toothbrush, I said, from his bathroom at her house. He stays there sometimes when he's working late in the city. Dr. Shaw raised an eyebrow. Your mother is thorough. She's a matriarch. I managed a bitter smile. When she protects her family, she doesn't mess around. I'll need the toothbrush, and I'll need you to understand something, Daniel. Dr. Shaw leaned forward. His voice was gentle but firm. Whatever this test says, it doesn't erase 10 months of Caroline's pregnancy. It doesn't erase the moment the baby was born. If he's not yours biologically, if he's Jonathan's, that child is still innocent in all this. He still deserves a good life, a good father. I know, I said quietly, but that father isn't going to be me, not if he's Jonathan's son. I won't build my family on a lie. Dr. Shaw sealed the DNA kit, clinical white plastic case, the MUSC Genetics Lab logo on the front. That antiseptic smell. He handed me the kit for my sample, kept the one for the baby. I'll collect the baby's sample tomorrow during the scheduled checkup. Bring me the toothbrush, and I'll send everything to the lab. Results in 72 hours. He paused. Daniel, I hope I'm wrong. I hope this test comes back showing you're the father. But if it doesn't, his voice caught. You'll need to be strong. For grace and hope. They're going to need you more than ever. I took the DNA kit. That plastic case felt light in my hands. 2 ounces maybe. But it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The call came from Beth Hamilton on day 5. Daniel, it's Beth, Caroline's friend. Can we meet? I need to talk to you. We met at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. Beth looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, hands shaking when she picked up her coffee cup. I've been keeping a secret, she said without preamble, for 6 months, and I can't do it anymore. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I need to tell you. My stomach dropped. You knew. Caroline told me in September about the affair. She swore me to secrecy, said you were emotionally abusive, that you ignored her, neglected her, made her feel invisible. She painted this picture of you as this cold, controlling husband, and Jonathan as her savior, her escape. Beth pulled out her phone, started scrolling. She texted me constantly, asking for advice, asking me to cover for her when she was with Jonathan. I did it because I believed her. I thought I was helping a friend escape an abusive marriage. She turned the phone toward me. Screenshots of text conversations. Caroline complaining about me being too perfect to live with. About how I never fought with her, never showed emotion, never let her in. About how Jonathan understood her in ways I never could. Then I saw you at the country club 3 weeks ago, Beth continued, with Grace and Hope, the way you were with them, patient, kind, laughing, and I realized Caroline lied about everything. You're not abusive, you're not controlling, you're just a good man who works hard and loves his family. She put her phone away. I asked Caroline about it, confronted her. She admitted she exaggerated, said she needed me to understand why she did what she did, and that's when I knew I'd helped her destroy a good man's life. I'd enabled her affair by covering for her, by keeping her secrets. Beth started crying. I'm so sorry, Daniel. I'm so sorry. I should have told you months ago, but I was scared. I didn't want to betray Caroline. I didn't want to be responsible for breaking up a family. Here's the question that kept me up at night. If you knew your friend's spouse was being cheated on, would you tell them? Would you speak up knowing it would destroy lives, or would you stay loyal to your friend and keep the secret? I'll tell you what I think. Beth chose loyalty to Caroline over truth, and that choice made her part of the lie. She became an accessory to the betrayal, not because she wanted to hurt me, but because she thought loyalty meant protecting her friend's secrets. But I get it. These choices aren't black and white. When you're standing in the middle of someone else's mess, trying to figure out what's right, it's never as simple as it looks from the outside. Thank you for telling me now, I said. It takes courage to admit you were wrong. What are you going to do? Beth asked. I'm getting a DNA test. If that baby is Jonathan's, then everyone's going to know the truth. Not just me, not just our families, everyone. Beth nodded slowly. Caroline told me Jonathan wanted to keep it secret, said he'd take care of the baby financially, but couldn't acknowledge paternity publicly. Something about his position at the company, his reputation. His cowardice, I corrected. Jonathan has always been good at taking what he wants and hiding when there are consequences. Beth pulled out a business card, wrote her phone number on the back. If you need me to testify, to tell a lawyer what I know, to be a witness, I will. I owe you that much. I took the card, put it in my wallet next to the folded Singapore receipt. Evidence was piling up. Hotel records, emails, credit card statements, witness testimony. All of it pointing to the same conclusion. My brother had been sleeping with my wife for 8 months. The baby upstairs with my wife's maiden name still on his hospital bracelet was probably Jonathan's son, but probably wasn't enough. I needed certainty. The FedEx envelope arrived at my mother's house 3 days later. I was in my car, sitting in her driveway. The envelope was thick, security envelope with that textured linen finish, MUSC genetics lab return address, 9 by 12 inches. You could hear the pages shift inside when you moved it. I didn't open it, just sat there, holding it, staring at the seal. My phone buzzed. Margaret, come inside. We'll open it together. She was waiting in her sitting room, the room where we'd had 1,000 family meetings over the years, where my father used to sit in the wing chair by the fireplace, reading the paper, where Jonathan and I would play chess on Sunday afternoons when we were kids. That wing chair was empty now, had been for 2 years. Margaret sat on the sofa, patted the cushion beside her. I sat, handed her the envelope. Her hands were shaking. She tore the perforated strip, that satisfying ripping sound that seemed too loud in the quiet room. Pulled out 4 pages, heavy bond stock, stapled in the corner. The staple made a small metallic sound when she removed it. The first page was dense text, methodology, disclaimers, legal language. Margaret's eyes scanned it quickly, then she turned to the second page. A table, simple, clean, 2 rows, 2 names, 2 percentages. She started reading aloud, her voice cracking with every word. Sample 1, Daniel Christopher Ashford. She paused, took a breath. Probability of paternity, 0.0%. The room spun, 0.0. Not unlikely, not low probability, 0.0. Margaret's voice was barely a whisper now. Sample 2, Jonathan Michael Ashford. Probability of paternity, 99.97%. I made a sound. I don't know what it was. Something between a gasp and a scream. Something animal, guttural. My hands came up to my face. My chest hurt. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't process what those numbers meant. Margaret set the pages down, put her arms around me, and we both just broke. Your brother stole your son, Daniel. She whispered into my shoulder. Your own blood. Your own brother. I pulled back, looked at the test results again. Those cold clinical numbers, 0.0% and 99.97%. Scientific certainty, no room for argument, no way to explain it away as genetics being funny or God working in mysterious ways. Jonathan was the father. Not me, never me. That baby I'd held in the delivery room with my brother's widow's peak and my brother's eyes was my brother's son. Conceived in Singapore on Valentine's Day while I was back in Charleston working 80-hour weeks to keep the company running. Born while I stood in the delivery room thinking I was becoming a father for the 3rd time. A lie. All of it. A lie. What do I do? I asked. My voice sounded broken, foreign. Mom, what do I do with this? Margaret's face was steel now. The grief was still there, but underneath it was something harder, older, the matriarch protecting her family. We call a family meeting, she said, all 4 of us, you, me, Caroline, and Jonathan. We put this evidence on the table, and we make them explain themselves face to face. No more hiding, no more running. They look you in the eye and tell you why they did this. And then? And then you decide what you're going to do about it. But Daniel, she picked up the DNA results, held them up. This is proof. Scientific, undeniable proof. Whatever you decide, whether you choose to protect the Ashford name by staying silent or to burn it all down by exposing them, you make that choice knowing the truth. All of it. I took the results from her. Those 4 pages that weighed nothing but felt like they weighed everything. Proof, evidence, truth. Call them, I said. Tonight, your house, library, 7 o'clock. Tell them if they don't come, I'm filing for divorce tomorrow and holding a press conference to announce why. Margaret nodded, picked up her phone, started typing. I sat there in that sitting room, holding the DNA results, feeling the staple's rough edge against my thumb. My father's wing chair sat empty across from me. I wondered what he would say if he could see this, if he'd still believe that Ashford honor was Ashford currency, if he'd still think the family name was worth protecting. I touched my signet ring, that heavy gold weight on my finger. 4 generations, 178 years, all of it built on the assumption that Ashford men kept their word, that we were honorable, trustworthy, good. And now I knew that at least one Ashford man was none of those things. My brother, my own blood, the person I'd trusted most in the world after my father died, had looked at me every day for 8 months, shaken my hand at board meetings, called me brother with that easy smile, and lied every single day. Lied. The rage came then, not hot, cold, surgical, clear. Jonathan had stolen my wife, had planned to steal my son, had used my grief over my father, my dedication to the company, my trust in family against me. He was done. Both of them were done. 7 o'clock, Margaret's library, mahogany furniture, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, family portraits on the walls, 4 generations of Ashford men staring down at us, 4 chairs arranged in a semicircle, Margaret and I on one side, Caroline and Jonathan on the other. Jonathan looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles. He couldn't look at me. kept staring at his hands, at the carpet, anywhere but my face. Caroline was crying before we even started. Margaret stood. She'd dressed formally, black suit, pearls, her courtroom armor. When she spoke, her voice was cold, precise, the voice of a woman who'd run board meetings for 40 years. Jonathan, Caroline, I've brought you here tonight to discuss the affair you've been conducting for the past 8 months. The affair that resulted in the pregnancy, the baby you both tried to pass off as Daniel's son. She walked to the mahogany desk, picked up a stack of papers, started laying them out on the coffee table between us. The Singapore hotel receipt, the credit card statements, 23 pages of printed emails, screenshots from Beth's phone, hotel security footage stills that Henry Chen had finally obtained showing Caroline and Jonathan entering room 847 together, multiple times over 4 days. And finally, the DNA test results. Margaret placed each piece of evidence carefully, deliberately, like a prosecutor building a case. "Explain this," she said. "Explain this to the family you destroyed." Caroline tried to speak. "Margaret, Not to me." Margaret's voice cut through the room. "To Daniel. You explain to your husband why you betrayed him, why you lied to him, why you tried to make him raise another man's child as his own." Caroline turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "Daniel, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. Jonathan and I, we connected. You were always working, always focused on the business. And Jonathan made me feel seen, special. I know that's not an excuse. I know I should have talked to you, should have been honest. But I was scared. And then I got pregnant and I didn't know what to do. And when were you going to tell me?" I asked. My voice was calm. That's what scared them, I think, how calm I was. I don't know. "Were you ever going to tell me?" "I ended it with Jonathan," she said. "When I found out I was pregnant, I chose you. I chose our family." "No," I leaned forward. "You chose convenience. You chose the Ashford name, the money, the security. You didn't choose me. You chose what I could give you." I turned to Jonathan. He still wasn't looking at me. "Look at me." He didn't move. "Jonathan, look at me." Slowly, he raised his eyes. They were red. He'd been crying. "Why?" I asked. "Just tell me why. Why her? Why this? Why would you do this to me?" "I don't know," he whispered. I didn't plan it, Daniel. It just happened. Singapore, we were drunk and... Don't." I held up the email printouts. "Don't give me it just happened. This is 8 months of premeditation. This is you writing, 'I love you' to my wife. This is you planning a future with her. This is you hoping I'd be stupid enough to sign that birth certificate and raise your son as mine." Jonathan flinched. "I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did." I stood up, walked around the coffee table, stood in front of him. Jonathan shrank back in his chair. "You hurt me in the worst way possible. You didn't just betray me. You tried to erase me, make me a placeholder, a wallet, a name on a birth certificate for your son. Daniel, please, don't." I stepped back. My voice was still calm, still controlled. "Don't call me that. Don't call me brother. You're not my brother. Brothers don't do this." Jonathan reached for me, actually reached for me, like he thought I'd take his hand, like we'd hug it out and everything would be fine. I looked at his hand, at the signet ring on his finger, the smaller version, the second son's ring, the one my father gave him when he graduated from Wharton, gold with the family crest, the same crest on my ring. "You want to be the patriarch," I said quietly. "You want the Ashford name, the legacy, the honor, then take the responsibility. Take care of your son. Put your name on his birth certificate. Face the consequences of what you did." I pulled off my signet ring, that heavy gold weight I'd worn every day for 2 years. set it on the coffee table between us with a decisive metallic sound. "Oh, wait," I said. "You can't do that because you have no honor. You never did. You just wore the ring and pretended." The room was silent. Caroline was sobbing. Jonathan was staring at the ring on the table. Margaret was watching me with something like pride in her eyes. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. Caroline, you have 1 week to move out of our house. Jonathan, you're fired, effective immediately. Your employment at Ashford Maritime Holdings is terminated for gross misconduct, specifically conducting an extramarital affair with a fellow executive, which violates company policy on workplace relationships and ethical conduct." "Daniel, no." Jonathan tried to stand. Margaret stepped forward, put a hand on his shoulder, pushed him back down. "You'll vacate your office by end of business tomorrow," I continued. "Your access cards will be deactivated, your company email will be suspended, and your name will be removed from the letterhead." "You can't do that," Jonathan said. "Dad left me that position. It's mine." "Dad left you a job," I corrected, "not a birthright, and you forfeited that job the moment you betrayed this family." I turned to Margaret. "I assume you'll handle the rest." She nodded. "Jonathan's trust fund is revoked. The inheritance clause in your father's will includes provisions for moral turpitude. Conducting an affair with your brother's wife qualifies. You'll receive nothing. Not the house, not the investments, nothing." Jonathan went white. "Mom, you can't." "I can, and I will. The family money was earned through honor and hard work. You've shown neither. You don't deserve it." She turned to Caroline. "Your country club membership is revoked. The Ashford name opened that door for you. You betrayed that name. You no longer have access." Caroline made a small sound, like she'd been hit. I picked up the DNA results, held them up so they could both see. "This baby, William, or whatever you decide to name him, is Jonathan's son. Scientifically proven. 99.97% certainty. So Jonathan's name goes on the birth certificate, not mine. And Jonathan will pay child support. And Jonathan will take responsibility for what he did." "What about Grace and Hope?" Caroline whispered. "They're my daughters." "They were your daughters," I said. "But I have primary custody. That's in our prenuptial agreement. In case of adultery, I retain full custody of any children from previous marriages. You'll have visitation, supervised, because I don't trust you anymore." I walked to the door, stopped, turned back. "For 8 months, you both told me you were working late, that you were focused on the company, that you were doing this for the family's sake. But you weren't thinking about family. You were thinking about yourselves, your wants, your desires. You were willing to destroy everything we built, everything 4 generations built, for an affair." I looked at Jonathan, my brother, my blood, the person I'd loved and trusted my entire life. "I would have died for you," I said quietly. "If you'd needed a kidney, I would have given it to you without hesitation. If you'd needed money, I would have emptied my accounts. If you needed help, I would have moved mountains, because you were my brother, and I thought that meant something." Jonathan was crying now. "It does mean something, Daniel, please." "It meant something," I corrected. "Past tense. It doesn't anymore. You killed it. You killed us. And you'll spend the rest of your life knowing that." I walked out, left them sitting there in that library with all those portraits of Ashford men staring down at them, men who kept their word, men who honored their families, men who wore the signet ring with pride. Jonathan would never be one of those men, and everyone was going to know it. I couldn't go home, couldn't face the empty house where Caroline's things were still scattered everywhere, her coffee mug by the sink, her jacket on the hook by the door, evidence of the life I thought we had. So I drove to St. Michael's Church. It was late, almost 9. The doors were unlocked. They always were. This church had been standing for 230 years. Ashfords had been coming here for 4 generations. Baptized here, married here, buried from here. I sat in the back pew, the same pew where I'd sat as a child, fidgeting during sermons while my father gave me stern looks. The same pew where Caroline and I had exchanged vows 18 months ago. The same pew where we'd held my father's funeral. The sanctuary was dark except for the altar candles. That soft, flickering light, the kind that's supposed to be comforting, holy. Right now, it just made the shadows deeper. I thought about my father, about his last words to me. Ashford honor is Ashford currency. Guard it with your life. I'd tried, God knows I'd tried. I'd worked 80-hour weeks to keep the company running after he died. I'd been faithful to my wife. I'd shown up for my daughters. I'd trusted my brother with our family's finances, with our legacy, with everything, and it hadn't mattered. Because honor only works when both people believe in it. When one person is lying and the other person is trusting, honor just becomes a weapon, a way to manipulate, a way to steal. My father was wrong, or maybe he wasn't wrong. Maybe the world had changed. Maybe honor used to mean something back when a handshake was binding and a man's word was worth more than a contract. But now people lied, people cheated, people wore signet rings and spoke about family legacy while they destroyed it from the inside. I put my head in my hands and I just broke, cried in that empty church for my marriage, for my brother, for the man I thought I was and the man I'd turned out to be, the man who'd been too blind to see what was happening in his own family. Daniel? I looked up. Reverend Caldwell was standing in the aisle. White hair, kind eyes, the same eyes that had watched me grow up, that had married me, that had prayed over my father's casket. I saw your car in the parking lot, he said quietly. Mind if I sit? I gestured to the pew. He sat beside me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then, I heard, he said, about Caroline and Jonathan. Margaret called me this afternoon, asked me to check on you. I wiped my face, tried to pull myself together. I don't know what to do, Reverend. My father taught me that Ashford honor was everything, that protecting the family name was the most important thing. But now, my voice cracked. How do I protect a name that's built on lies? How do I carry this legacy forward when half my family is poison? Reverend Caldwell was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Your father was a good man, one of the best I've known, but he was wrong about one thing. I looked at him, surprised. Honor isn't protecting a name, Reverend Caldwell said. Honor is being willing to lose everything for the truth. It's standing up and saying, this is wrong, even when it costs you, even when it destroys your family, even when it makes you look like the villain. He put a hand on my shoulder. The Ashford name has stood for something in this city for 178 years, but that something can't be a lie. If you sign that birth certificate, if you stay silent to protect your brother and your wife, you're saying the Ashford name is more important than truth. And once you do that, the name doesn't mean anything anymore. It's just a word, just letters on a building. But Grace and Hope, I said, they're going to lose their family, their uncle, their mother's respect, everything they thought was stable. They're going to learn something more important, Reverend Caldwell said. They're going to learn that their father is a man who tells the truth, who doesn't compromise on what's right, who shows up even when it's hard. That's the legacy worth passing down, Daniel. Not a name, not a building, not a bank account, character, integrity, truth. He stood up. You're going to have to make some hard choices in the next few days, choices that hurt. But I want you to remember something. You didn't break this family. Caroline and Jonathan did. You're just refusing to pretend it's not broken. And that's not cruelty. That's courage. He squeezed my shoulder one more time. Then he left me alone in that church with my thoughts and my grief and the weight of what I had to do next. I sat there for another hour, and when I finally stood up, I knew what I had to do. I had to tell Grace and Hope. The child therapist's office was designed to be calming, soft colors, comfortable chairs, a box of tissues on every surface. Dr. Lisa Park had worked with the girls before after their biological mother abandoned them. She knew our family, knew the trauma they'd already survived. Now I had to add more. Grace and Hope sat on the sofa between me and Dr. Park. They'd brought the scrapbook, the one they'd made for their baby brother. 20 pages of construction paper and glitter and crayon drawings. They wanted to know when they could give it to him. "Girls," I said. My voice was shaking. "I need to talk to you about something important, about our family, and it's going to be hard to hear." Hope's hand found mine immediately. She was always the sensitive one. Grace sat up straighter like she was preparing for battle. "My brave girl." "Is it about Mommy Caroline?" Grace asked. "She hasn't been home in 5 days, and Uncle Jonathan hasn't visited like he promised." Dr. Park nodded at me. "Go ahead." "Caroline and I are getting a divorce," I said. The words felt like glass in my throat. "We're not going to be married anymore, and that means our family is going to look different." "Why?" Hope's voice was small. "Did we do something wrong?" And there it was. The thing I'd been dreading. That innocent question. That automatic assumption that when adults break things, it must be the children's fault. "No, sweetheart," I pulled her close. "No, you did everything right. You're perfect, both of you. This is about grown-up choices, grown-up mistakes, not anything you did." "What kind of mistakes?" Grace asked. "Always the analytical one, always needing details." I looked at Dr. Park. She nodded again. "Tell them. Age appropriate, but honest." "Caroline and Uncle Jonathan made some choices that hurt our family," I said carefully. "They were spending time together in ways that married people shouldn't, and those choices mean that Caroline and I can't be married anymore. And Uncle Jonathan..." I had to stop, breathe. "Uncle Jonathan won't be part of our family the same way anymore." Grace's eyes widened. She was 8, but she was smart. She understood what I wasn't saying. "The baby," she said, "the baby is Uncle Jonathan's, not yours." Hope gasped, looked at me with those huge eyes. "That's not your baby brother?" I held the scrapbook, that construction paper rough under my fingers, the glitter still shedding onto my lap, all those innocent messages they'd written. "Dear baby brother, we can't wait to teach you to ride horses. You're so lucky you get to be an Ashford." "No," I said quietly. "He's not. He's Uncle Jonathan's son, which means he's still your cousin, still part of the family in that way, but he's not your brother." Hope started crying, not loud sobs, just quiet tears running down her face. Grace was doing that thing she does when she's trying to be strong, jaw clenched, eyes bright, refusing to cry. "So Uncle Jonathan and Mommy Caroline," Grace couldn't finish the sentence, "made choices that hurt all of us," I said. "Hurt me, hurt you, hurt the family." "I don't understand," Hope said through her tears. "Why would they do that? Don't they love us?" And that was the question, wasn't it? The one I'd been asking myself for days. How could they claim to love us while doing something that would inevitably destroy us? "I think they love themselves more," I said honestly. "I think they wanted what they wanted, and they didn't think about what it would cost. Or maybe they thought they could keep it secret forever. But secrets like that, they always come out. And when they do, people get hurt." Dr. Park leaned forward. "Grace, Hope, I want you to know something. What happened between your stepmother and your uncle is not about you. Adults make choices for complicated reasons. Sometimes those choices are selfish. Sometimes they hurt people. But you didn't cause this, and you can't fix it. This is for the grown-ups to handle." "Where are we going to live?" Grace asked, always practical. "With me," I said firmly. "You're staying with me, in our house, your rooms, your school, your friends. Everything stays the same for you, except that Caroline won't be living with us anymore. She'll have visits with you, but I have primary custody." Good, Grace said fiercely. I don't want to live with her if she hurt you. Hope looked up at me. Daddy, are you going to be okay? And there it was, my 8-year-old daughter worried about me, trying to take care of me when I should be taking care of her. Yes, baby, I said. It's going to hurt for a while, for all of us. But we're going to be okay because we have each other. And that's real. That's solid. You two are the most important things in my life, and nothing, not Caroline, not Jonathan, not anyone, is going to change that. Does this mean Uncle Jonathan isn't our uncle anymore? Grace asked. I thought about that, about biology versus choice, about blood versus loyalty. He'll always be your uncle by blood, I said, but he won't be in our family anymore, not the way he was, because family isn't just about being related. It's about showing up, being trustworthy, being there when things are hard. And Uncle Jonathan didn't do that. He made choices that broke our trust, so he doesn't get to be in our family the same way. Hope climbed into my lap. She was getting too big for this, but she curled up against me anyway. Grace moved closer, took my hand. We want to stay with you, Daddy, Hope whispered. Just us three. Is that okay? I held them both. These two girls who'd already lost one mother to abandonment and now were losing a stepmother to betrayal, who'd already learned too young that adults don't always keep their promises, who were now learning that sometimes the people you trust most are the ones who hurt you worst. That's more than okay, I said. That's everything. We sat there in Dr. Park's office for a long time, just the three of us. And I realized something. This was my family, not Caroline, not Jonathan, not some imaginary perfect family with a baby brother and a white picket fence. This right here. Two little girls who chose to stay with me even when everything was falling apart, who loved me not because we shared blood. Hope and Grace weren't biologically mine either. Their father abandoned them when they were babies. But because I showed up every day, no matter what. Family isn't who you're born to, it's who stays. The next 2 weeks were a blur of legal filings and social consequences. Eleanor Price, my godmother and our family attorney, filed for divorce citing adultery, filed for emergency custody of Grace and Hope, which was granted, filed a motion to have my name removed from William's birth certificate before it was officially recorded. The court ordered Jonathan to submit to a paternity test, which he did finally once he realized there was no way out. The results confirmed what we already knew. 99.97%, Jonathan's name went on the birth certificate, not mine. William Jonathan Ashford, born March 18, 2025, father Jonathan Michael Ashford, mother Caroline Ann Ashford. I never signed it, never put my name on that document, refused to commit fraud, refused to lie to the state of South Carolina. At Ashford Maritime Holdings, the board convened an emergency meeting. I presented the evidence, the emails, the hotel records, the affair between two executives, one of whom was married to the COO, violation of company policy, grounds for immediate termination. The vote was unanimous. Jonathan was out. I went to his office on a Tuesday afternoon, that mahogany door with the brass nameplate. Jonathan Ashford, CFO. I had a screwdriver in my hand, 4 brass screws, 1 in each corner. They turned easily, hadn't been changed since my father had the nameplate installed 12 years ago. Squeak, turn, squeak, turn. The nameplate came free in my hands. That cool brass, that engraved lettering, 12 years of Jonathan's position, his title, his place in the company our father built. I walked into his office. He was there, packing boxes. Wouldn't look at me. Your nameplate, I said, set it on his desk with a dull, metallic clank. You're done here. Daniel, please. You wanted the family? I said. You take the responsibility. Take care of your son. Pay your child support. Face the consequences of what you did. I pulled out a small velvet box from my pocket, Opened it. Inside was Jonathan's signet ring, the one he'd left at Margaret's house. The second son's ring, smaller than mine, but the same crest, the same gold. I'm having this melted down, I said. The jeweler is going to make 2 necklaces for Grace and Hope so they can wear the gold. But you don't get to wear the symbol. You don't have the honor to back it up. Jonathan's face crumpled. That was Dad's ring. He gave it to me. Dad gave it to a son he thought had honor. You proved him wrong. The gold stays in the family, but you don't. I walked out, left him standing there in his empty office with boxes half packed and his nameplate on the desk. By end of business that day, his access cards were deactivated, his company email suspended, his parking spot reassigned. Jonathan Ashford was no longer CFO of Ashford Maritime Holdings. He was just a guy who betrayed his family and lost everything. The Charleston Country Club Spring Gala was always the event of the season. 400 guests, black tie. The Ashford family always hosted a table for 10. Always sat front and center, always made speeches about philanthropy and family legacy. This year, I walked in with Grace and Hope, just the 3 of us. Our table had 3 place settings, 3, where there should have been 6. The whispers were immediate, heads turning, phones discreetly pulled out. The Ashford scandal had been contained so far, no press, no public statements, but Charleston society knew. They always knew. Beth Hamilton had told her friends. The country club's staff had noticed Caroline's membership was revoked. The church congregation had seen that I'd stopped attending with Caroline. 400 people watching, judging, waiting to see what I'd do. I held my head high, took Grace and Hope to our table, sat down. The Charleston Post and Courier Society reporter approached. Mr. Ashford, I noticed your wife and brother aren't here tonight. Is everything all right? My wife and I are divorcing, I said simply. My brother is no longer with the company. That's all I have to say on the matter. She pressed. Rumor has it there was an affair. That's all I have to say, I repeated. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm here to spend time with my daughters. She left, but the damage was done. By morning, the Post and Courier Society page would run the story. By noon, everyone in Charleston would know the truth. The Ashford golden boy and the Ashford patriarch's wife had betrayed the family, and Daniel Ashford had burned it all down rather than lie. Some people would say I handled it wrong, that I should have kept it quiet, settled things privately, protected the family name at all costs. But here's what I learned. The family name isn't worth protecting if it's built on lies. A reputation that requires silence about betrayal isn't a reputation worth having. And sometimes burning things down is the only way to build something real. Ten months later, Grace and Hope were thriving, still in therapy, still processing, but they were good, happy. They decided they didn't want to visit Caroline anymore, their choice, supported by their therapist. Caroline had moved to a smaller condo downtown. Got a job at a competing maritime company, saw the girls once a month for supervised coffee dates that usually ended early. Jonathan was paying child support, had taken custody of William, was trying to be a father, apparently. I didn't ask for details, didn't care. Margaret had reports through her network. William was healthy, Jonathan's new apartment was child-proofed, he'd hired a nanny. Fine. The baby deserved stability, even if his parents had caused chaos. I'd been promoted to CEO by the board. Ashford Maritime Holdings was doing better than ever. Turned out removing a CFO who was embezzling small amounts to fund an affair was good for the bottom line. We'd hired a new financial officer, reformed some policies, moved forward. I was even dating again. Nothing serious yet. Just coffee dates. Getting to know someone without the weight of family history, without Charleston society watching every move. Reverend Caldwell had introduced me to a woman who'd moved to Charleston last year, a widow with 2 teenagers of her own. We understood each other. the weight of loss, the process of rebuilding. But today wasn't about me. Today was about closure. Grace, Hope, and I stood in the Ashford family cemetery. It was a small plot behind St. Michael's Church. 4 generations buried here. My father's gravestone was the newest, granite, simple. Thomas William Ashford, 1955-2023, beloved husband, father, patriarch. We'd brought an oak sapling, small, fragile, maybe 3 feet tall. The nursery owner had said it would take years to grow, decades, maybe even outlive us. Perfect. We dug a hole together, me with the shovel, the girls helping move dirt with their hands. Getting dirty, laughing when Hope found a worm. Grace named it Gerald. Normal kid stuff, healing stuff. I placed the sapling in the hole carefully. We filled in the dirt, patted it down. "Why an oak tree?" Hope asked. "Because oak trees grow slow," I said, "but they grow strong, deep roots, and they live for hundreds of years. I want this tree to be here long after we're gone, a reminder of what we chose today." "What did we choose?" Grace asked, always wanting to understand. "Truth," I said, "and new growth, and family that's built on showing up, not just sharing blood." They each picked up a stone from the cemetery path. Smooth river rocks we'd collected on the way here, placed them at the base of the tree. A small cairn, a marker. "There," Hope said, stepping back to admire their work. "Now it's official." I stood between my daughters, put my arms around them. The 3 of us looked at that small oak tree, at the graves of 4 generations of Ashford men, at the legacy that had been built here. My father had taught me that Ashford honor was Ashford currency, that protecting the family name was everything, that a man's reputation was his most valuable possession. He was wrong, or maybe not wrong, maybe just incomplete. Honor isn't a name you inherit. It's a choice you make every single day. To tell the truth, to do right, to show up when it's hard, to protect the people who can't protect themselves, to refuse to compromise on what matters. The Ashford name had stood for something in Charleston for 178 years, and it would continue to stand for something, but that something had to be real, had to be honest, had to be worth the weight of all that history. I looked down at my hand, at the signet ring I wore now on my right hand instead of my left. Same ring, same gold, same crest, but different meaning. Not a symbol of inherited honor anymore, a symbol of chosen integrity. "Daddy," Grace looked up at me. "You're crying." I was. Happy tears, though. Healing tears. "I'm just grateful," I said, "for you two, for this moment, for the chance to build something real." Hope took my hand. Grace took the other one. And we stood there together, just 3. Where there used to be 5 or 6 or 10, just 3, but enough, more than enough. You know, Daniel and his daughters redefined what family means. Not who you're born to, but who shows up when everything falls apart. Who stays when it gets hard. Who chooses you not because of biology or obligation, but because of love. If you've built your own chosen family, if you've had to let go of people who hurt you and create something new with people who show up, I want to hear about it. Tell me your story in the comments. You're not alone in this. And if this story moved you, if it made you feel something, subscribe. I tell stories about honor and betrayal and what it really means to protect the people you love. Stories about making impossible choices when there are no good options. Stories about the moment you realize that truth matters more than comfort. I'll see you in the next one. Epilogue. 3 years later. I'm standing in my office at Ashford Maritime Holdings, CEO. Now, the company's never been stronger. We just landed our biggest contract yet. International shipping routes, millions in revenue. On my desk, there's a framed photo. Not the old wedding photo with Caroline. That's long gone. This is a new photo. Me with Grace and Hope at their equestrian competition last month, both girls grinning, holding ribbons. Hope got second place, Grace got first. They're 11 now, growing up so fast. Next to that photo is another one, more recent. Me with Sarah, the woman Reverend Caldwell introduced me to. We've been together for 2 years now. Getting serious, the girls adore her. Her teenagers tolerate me, which I am told is a win. We're talking about buying a house together, blending our families, building something new, and on my finger, I still wear the signet ring. Right hand now. The gold is more worn than it was 3 years ago, more tarnish in the crevices, but it's still there, still solid, still mine. I touch it sometimes when I'm thinking, when I'm making difficult decisions, when I'm trying to figure out the right thing to do. And I remember my father's words. Ashford honor is Ashford currency. He was right, just not in the way he thought. Honor isn't protecting a lie. Honor isn't maintaining appearances. Honor isn't silence in the face of betrayal. Honor is standing up and saying, this is wrong, even when it costs you everything. Honor is choosing truth over comfort. Honor is showing up for the people who can't protect themselves. Honor is being willing to lose the name, the money, the reputation, the family, all of it, rather than compromise on what's right. That's the legacy worth passing down. That's the currency that actually matters. Grace and Hope know their story. They know what Caroline and Jonathan did. They know what I did. And someday, when they're older, when they face their own impossible choices, I hope they remember, family isn't blood. Family isn't a name on a building or a ring on your finger. Family is who stays, who shows up, who tells the truth even when it hurts. And if you build your family on that foundation, on truth, on integrity, on showing up, it'll stand for a lot longer than 178 years. It'll stand forever. The Ashford name will continue, but only because it finally stands for something real.